Introduction. Dark Pictures. In my opinion, this is an interesting series of games. But she wasn't always like that. I stumbled upon the first part called Man of Medan by accident, digging into the Game Pass library, and the game was Norm. Yes, it had a mediocre plot, the same characters, in the middle like a horror game. The game stopped working altogether, because everything became clear about the origin of the monsters, only the lazy didn't speak about the QTE there. Put plus in the comments if you also replayed 100 times the last chapter in order to still save this damn distributor cover, but in general, as a time killer for one time, it will do. In the second part of the Little Hope series, they were very clever with timelines and mechanics, especially in the end, when monsters suddenly jumped out and killed some of the characters for not very clear reasons, while in all other respects the game was very similar to its predecessor, because even scarecrows again turned out to be only hallucinations of the protagonist. The third part of House of Ashes has become my favorite. In my opinion, the developers did the right thing by changing direction in a completely different direction. There were innovations in the gameplay, and the plot began to look like a classic action movie, where a group of brave American soldiers get, well, or don't get, if QTE was squandered, non-illusory from quite real monsters this time. Why am I all this? Moreover, progress is noticeable from game to game, and with the release of each new game, it becomes interesting to me whether Supermassive will do something new or whether a pipeline of completely identical games will begin, but in a different wrapper. And now that I have brought my thoughts to the right topic, let's figure out together what the devil in me is. A little about the plot. The game starts as usual with a prologue. A couple of newlyweds check into a hotel, where they are met by a completely unsuspicious owner of this very hotel. The newlyweds are killed according to the script. We once again observe the introductory screensaver. We are met by the narrator, and in the course of his monologue he introduces us to the first innovation. These are coins that the narrator promises to exchange for something interesting. For collecting coins, you can buy dioramas with characters, as well as key moments of the game. Yes, dioramas with death scenes will also be available for purchase. After, we are given a pack of new wards. This is a psychologist journalist suffering from bilateral flux named Kate, cameraman Mark, an aunt from Man of Medan, but here her name is not Fliss, but Jamie, and here she is lighting on the set. Erin is a nervous and shy girl who suffers from asthma, which will play a role further, works as a sound engineer and essentially replaces Charlie's assistant. Speaking of him, Charlie is a director, however, not a lucky one. His last show, in which our heroes actually work, also did not find success, which, in fact, forced the desperate Charlie to respond to a frankly suspicious offer to go to a remote island, to the castle of a famous serial killer, getting out of which, not the fact that everyone will succeed. Gameplay. Upon arrival on the island, we are met by them. Gameplay innovations. Now, in addition to choosing phrases, of which there are much fewer here, we will need to walk, jump, balance on beams, look for objects, and, in addition to the already familiar paintings and previously designated coins, now we will also come across plot important objects, without which we will leave the location if it doesn't work. They will add up to the inventory that appears, and also, we added simple puzzles with dragging boxes, finding passwords, finding a way by sound, and turning on electrical panels according to a given scheme. Well, QTE, of course, without them anywhere. Unfortunately, as in the third part, you can't adjust the speed of the disappearance of the buttons, but you can still set warnings that you will need to focus soon. It is worth noting that the game has not become less casual because of this, but all of the above mechanics work to ensure that I do not tear myself away from the monitor and do not let go of the joystick. What upset? First, it's all the same scary facial animation. The eyes of the characters are empty and often look in the wrong direction, and sometimes the emotion on the face does not correspond to the situation at all. You can get used to it, of course. But it's still depressing. Secondly, at the end, the narrator will say that, having gone through a difficult and dangerous path, the heroes have become the best versions of themselves, overcame fears, let go of the ghosts of the past, became more independent, and so on, but this very thing is not revealed to us at all. The past, the ghosts of which must be released to one character, and do not show the lack of independence of another. Everything is so arbitrary, and is contained in only 2 or 3 phrases that essentially do not affect anything, that it becomes completely incomprehensible why this was left in the game in principle. Thirdly, these are places that are too dark in places, in which it is difficult to see the direction, even with the brightness and contrast turned up to 100 and the flashlight in the character's hands turned on. Fourthly, it is not always clear on what principle the elections work. Somewhere they give me control, and then, having changed just one action that does not change the attitude of the characters, they no longer give me the right to decide and cut out the wrong character. Well, the last. This is a terrible camera. Particularly anger was caused by moments when it's already so dark, there are a lot of little things around, which serves as an invisible wall and over which the characters don't step over. It's also impossible to see something, because the head of my dummy occupies half of the screen. If only they would add a view from first person or something. Anything would be better. Results. I can say that my expectations about this game were justified. I wanted a new one, I got a new one. This, of course, is not a revolution in interactive cinema, and the graphics are far from breakthrough, faces are not always frightening in a good way, and there are many other disadvantages that need to be corrected. But it seems to me that this is a unique project, at least because, unlike other games about which they say, it's beautiful, of course, but otherwise it's a fairy, here we have good teenage horrors that evolve from game to game, the plots of which give people to straighten their SPGs to the fullest and share their guesses with others.